For more on the crazy week for the Blue Jackets, we bring in the man who does the best job covering them in the business, Portzline from The Athletic. So, Porty, let's start with, I guess, the big news, although there's a lot to get to. John Davidson returning. Your thoughts on the former Ranger coming home?
Well, it's one of those stories. I think when it happens, you realize how much sense it made. It's also a little surprising, a little wild, because at that level of executive, typically when they leave, they don't come back again. I think there's so much to the story, as you mentioned. So much has changed in 2 years since he left. It feels like a very important time for this franchise, and I think ownership and President Mike Priest recognized the weight of this summer and how much pressure was on Jarmo Kekalainen, mixed with the direction this team had gone here the last couple of years, and recognized this is a franchise that needs help. And it's not that different than 2012, really. Here's this elite level executive in the NHL that's available. He does love Columbus. And so the match just seemed very, very comfortable again. So welcome back to Columbus, John Davidson.
You don't often see the prodigal president return, like you said, because, Porty, it takes humility on both sides. One, John Davidson has to walk back to the place he left and said, I'm back. And from an ownership standpoint, the guy who left you, now you say, you know what, we'll take you back. So are you surprised that both sides were able to kind of put their arms up and say it's best for everyone?
On that level, I'm not. On either one of those, really, I'm not, because they left on such good terms. And whether people chose to believe it or not, John Davidson, I don't think he would have left for just any opportunity. And I don't think he just left for the paycheck. I think people have to realize how much the New York Rangers meant to him. He played there. He was a broadcaster there, Hall of Fame broadcaster for 20 years. He was synonymous with the Rangers, with that brand, to many hockey fans for literally 2 generations. So I think it was viewed fairly as a special circumstance. I think the really delicate part to all of this is Jarmo Kekalainen, who has now ceded control, not by his own choice, but ceded control of the ultimate hockey decisions with the team. And I get the sense he's okay with this. I think they would have done it even if he weren't okay with this. But I think he's only okay with this because it is John Davidson. It's a guy he knows so well. It's the guy that gave him his first shot in the NHL, the guy who was willing to hire a European, the first and only European GM in the NHL. So there's a lot of dynamics here that had to work for this to fall into place.
John Davidson obviously got a new contract for coming here. Jarmo Kekalainen got an extension. And, Porty, we can make a case 2 ways here. One, Jarmo Kekalainen has done a great job of accumulating young talent, and they've had a pretty good run. But on the flip side, sometimes people point the finger at him as not extending players to big deals. And we can get into why certain specific deals didn't happen. I'm talking an overall perception. So
Yes.
Did you think Jarmo Kekalainen earned a chance to be here for another couple of years?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think the 2-year extension for Jarmo is sort of a way to appease him, frankly, for giving up ultimate control of this team. He still has obviously a huge voice in matters. Listen, I think if you look objectively, and like you said, it doesn't, at the end of the day, it ultimately doesn't matter why this player left or that player left. What matters is a lot of really good players have left here, and the replacements for them just have not worked out, plain and simple. This roster has greatly degraded since 2019. You look at what the year that they beat Tampa in the first round and pushed Boston in the second round. They played 23 guys. They dressed 23 different players in the playoffs that year. There are 10 still with the organization. And 2 of those are guys that barely play now. So there's 8 regulars left. That's the kind of turnover you see from a team that's rebuilding, from a team that's been really poor and is trying to get somewhere, not a team that was at the top of their own mountaintop. It's not the top of the mountaintop, but that's the peak for this franchise. And since then, it has left. Is it Jarmo's fault? Is it the players that want to leave? Matt Duchene is a great example. The Blue Jackets did not offer him a contract. They did not want to re-sign him. So that's not a case of Matt Duchene saying, I'm leaving, take care. But tell me and Matt Duchene hasn't been great in Nashville either. He's been rather disappointing to the Predators. But look what they've replaced Matt Duchene with here in Columbus. And tell me they're not better with Matt Duchene. I'm not saying he's the perfect player and the answer to everything, but the way what they went through this year, they could have desperately used players like Matt Duchene. They're just not good enough, plain and simple. And it was going the wrong direction for 2 years now. Is it coincidence that that started when John Davidson left? Is it bad luck? Is it all on Yarmo? Probably not. But they need something to, they need that voice that restores faith and confidence and patience with people that things are going to be handled the right way.
So the front office looks the way it always has, but we know the head coaching position won't. John Tortorella out. What are you hearing about the search? What do you expect to happen as far as timeline, possible names? What do you think?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. They started down this path. They started down the path of signing Seth Jones, or trying to sign him to an extension as well. And then the John Davidson situation hits. And so obviously they still need a coach, but now they're in circle back mode. Well, let's talk about this again. Let's all put our collective minds together. For instance, was David Quinn, the New York Rangers coach who was fired right after the last day of the season for them? Was he on their initial list? Not sure. He is now. And so that's how things can change. John Davidson has a Rolodex to rival anybody's in the National Hockey League. He knows everybody. If he doesn't know somebody, he knows somebody close to them. So it opens up the world. Gerard Gallant is a guy that the Blue Jackets are interested in. But case in point, the Rangers interviewed Gallant before he left for Latvia to coach Team Canada in the Worlds. The Blue Jackets have not talked to him yet. They plan to. Gallant absolutely would consider coming back to Columbus. He loved it here. But the coaching situation, like so many other things, has had a mild reset here. And I believe next week it now starts a new process with new voices and a whole new approach.
And I'll get you out on this one. No matter who the head coach is, he would be much better coaching Seth Jones long term. They control him for one more year. What do you expect to happen this summer?
Well, this is maybe the most important issue that they face. And my sense from Seth Jones's camp is that he wants to settle this quickly. In other words, knowing that young man as we do, just the little bit that we do, I don't think he thinks this needs to be a long, drawn out, drama filled, back and forth, headline making process. What is your best offer? What are we looking at? What's your vision for this team? Let's make the call. It's very interesting to me. Before the John Davidson stuff, really the wheels started in motion, Jarmo Kekalainen said that he had no problem if Seth Jones didn't sign an extension this summer. He had no problem taking him into next season, much like they did with Artemi Panarin, and trying everything they can, knowing that they risk losing him for nothing. And you listen to that and you think, how can this franchise, how can a small market franchise, or whatever you want to call us, they can't keep doing that. They have to get an answer here. You wonder how that idea or that sort of long-term planning might be reset by John Davidson. One other thing I'll leave you with, the fact that John Davidson has 5 years now and Jarmo Kekalainen has 4 years, and now there's a voice above Jarmo Kekalainen's. I wonder truly what this does to the idea of reloading and putting all your resources to be back into next year. I just can't see them. I think John Davidson and him coming here and the new term on these guys' contract, it allows them to look at things maybe with less urgency about next year and more about doing it the right way. But those are stories, those are answers probably that will play out here in the coming months rather than the coming days.